Hello and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are going to do something a little different.
Yeah.
Usually we're dissecting the latest productivity frameworks or, looking at tech trends that are moving at the speed of light.
hmm
But today we are intentionally looking at the brakes, or perhaps more accurately, the idle engine.
It is a distinct shift in pace, but it's a necessary one. We spend so much time talking about how to accelerate, we rarely talk about the physics of the wait.
Exactly. We are digging into a very specific narrative from the Devi Bhagavatam, specifically a story called When the Silence Finally Moved.
Right.
And just to set the stage for you listening,
hmm
this isn't a how-to guide for getting what you want faster. It is a philosophical look at why things happen when they happen, and not a moment before.
It really gets at that universal frustration we all feel. You know, the one where you feel like you're doing everything right, you're pushing, you're striving.
But the door just stays shut.
It just stays shut. And then, one random Tuesday, it swings open. Why? Why then?
That is the central question. Why now? Why does a situation shift today when it was completely stagnant yesterday? The source material we're working with calls this concept the line that I think just sets the tone for everything we're going to discuss. It says, there comes a moment when stillness is no longer restraint, but readiness.
That distinction right there is the entire ballgame. Restraint versus readiness.
I think we need to unpack that immediately. Because restraint is a word that, well, it carries a lot of negative baggage. It feels like a punishment. It feels like I'm being held back against my will.
Restraint is external, right? It's a wall. You cannot go. But readiness. Readiness is internal. It's a potential energy.
Okay.
Think of an archer pulling back a bowstring. To an observer, that arrow is perfectly still. It isn't moving. But would you call that restraint?
No, of course not.
No, it's the accumulation of power. The stillness is actually the most active part of the shot. If they let go too soon, the arrow just flops. Too long, the arm shakes. Readiness is that split second of perfect tension just before the release.
So our mission today is to explore that split second, to understand the transition from nothing is happening to everything is happening.
And the key, according to the text, is that this shift doesn't happen through force. It happens through permission.
Permission.
Which is a much harder concept for the modern mind to grasp than simple cause and effect. Cause and effect is mechanical. I push the button, the light turns on. Permission is. It's almost ecological. It's about the environment agreeing with you.
Before we get to the permission part, which I really want to dig into, the source material lays out the before state. It gives us a recipe, essentially. It says there are 4 specific ingredients required to reach this threshold. And looking at this list, I have to say it's not exactly the fun, high dopamine list we're used to.
No, it is certainly not a list of hacks.
The list is waiting, endurance, doubt, and inner alignment. Now, waiting and endurance, okay, I get those. Inner alignment, sure, that sounds like a standard mindfulness goal.
Right.
But doubt, that one really stuck out to me. Why is doubt a prerequisite for divine readiness? Usually we're told to just banish doubt. We're told to believe in ourselves blindly.
That is the common narrative, yes. Never question, just manifest. But the Devi Bhagavatam is taking a much more sophisticated, maybe a more realistic view here.
Okay, how so?
Well, think about engineering. If you are building a bridge that needs to carry heavy traffic, do you want to just believe it will hold? Or do you want to stress test it?
You stress test it, you put weight on it, you look for the cracks.
Exactly. Doubt is the stress test. The text suggests that certainty without doubt is often just arrogance or naivety. If you haven't questioned the path, you haven't actually chosen it. You're just blindly walking it.
So doubt checks the structural integrity of your container before the universe pours anything real into it.
That's a great way to put it.
So that period where you're second-guessing yourself, where you're thinking, is this ever going to work? Am I crazy for doing this?
Yeah.
That isn't a sign that you're failing.
No, it's a sign that the tempering process is working. Steel has to be heated and cooled. That's the doubt cycle. It ensures that when the readiness finally comes, your conviction is real. It's not just a fleeting emotion.
It's solid.
It's solid.
Then we have endurance. And I want to be careful here because the text makes a distinction. This is not passive waiting. This isn't sitting on the couch scrolling your phone waiting for an email.
Right. The source describes endurance as an active vigil. It's the difference between waiting for a bus and holding a yoga pose.
Okay, yeah.
Both involve staying in one place, but one is low energy and the other is high engagement. You are holding the space, you are maintaining the frequency. It's actually exhausting work,
So you've done the waiting, you're enduring the vigil, you've stress-tested yourself with doubt, and you've aligned. Then, according to the narrative, the universe reaches this threshold. And here is where the text just subverts our cinematic expectations. It says, this threshold is not the moment of sudden drama.
Which goes against almost every movie script we've ever seen. We want the thunderclap. We want the montage music to swell.
We want the door to be kicked down.
Yes. But the source uses a very specific, very quiet word for this moment. It says, it is the moment of permission.
Permission.
Permission. It is such a loaded word.
It implies a shift in power dynamics, doesn't it? If I have to wait for permission, am I not in control? That feels uncomfortable for people who like to be the protagonist.
I think it redefines what control means. If you think about a door, conquest, or breakthrough, words we use a lot in business, that implies the door is locked and you have to smash it down.
Right. You're imposing your will. I made this happen.
Exactly. But permission implies the door was waiting to be opened, but you had to knock. Or maybe you just had to wait for the lock to click. It means you aren't forcing your will upon the world. You are entering a state where the world allows you to move forward.
Because you finally fit through the frame.
You finally fit.
That feels quieter, less violent.
And much more sustainable. Because if you force a door open, you usually break the lock or damage the frame. You enter the room, sure, but you've broken the entryway. If you enter with permission, the structure remains intact. You walk through whole.
That leads perfectly into the description of the movement itself. The source describes how silence transitions into action. It says, the silence does not break abruptly, it shifts.
Again, just look at the precision of the language. A break is a violation. If a pipe breaks, it's a disaster. If silence breaks, it's an interruption.
But a shift.
A shift is evolution. It's continuity.
It reminds me of the seasons. You don't wake up one morning and it's suddenly winter. I mean, maybe where we live it feels like that sometimes, but technically it's a gradient.
Right.
The light changes, the air changes, and then suddenly you realize you're in a new season. It wasn't an event, it was a process.
Exactly. And the source points out something even more fascinating about this shift. It's not just the environment that changes. It's the person waiting. The text says, those who had waited are no longer the same as when they first called.
This is the part that really resonated with me. It describes the internal state of the person who is finally ready. It says, urgency has fallen away. Certainty has matured.
And this is the paradox of readiness. And honestly, it is the hardest pill to swallow.
It really is. Because usually when we want something, a promotion, a relationship, a solution, we want it now. We feel urgent. We feel like if we don't get it today, the world will end.
We are vibrating with need.
And the source is saying that vibration, that frantic urgency, that is the signal that you are not ready.
Precisely.
But why? Why is urgency a disqualifier? I thought urgency showed how much I cared.
Urgency is almost always rooted in fear. Fear that you'll miss out. Fear that you aren't enough without this thing. Fear of the silence. When you approach a situation with urgency, you are grasping. You're trying to consume the result.
So urgency falling away means what? You stop caring.
No, you stop fearing the wait. You accept the timing. That's when certainty matures. Matured certainty is quiet. It doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to rush.
It just knows.
It just knows. It's the difference between a child screaming, "I'm hungry," and an adult starting to chop vegetables for dinner.
One is a panic demand. The other is a state of competent preparation.
Perfectly put. The adult knows the food is coming. The child fears it might not. The adult is in a state of readiness. The child is in a state of distress.
So effectively, the source is saying you only get the permission to move once you no longer feel desperate to move, which is, it's so ironic.
It's the ultimate irony. You get the thing the moment you stop needing it to define you, because once the desperation is gone,